All right. So describe the home front of America during World War II. Within your response, explain propaganda, rationing, the War Production Board, and how private businesses in the U.S. transitioned for the war effort. All right. So detail a little bit about what was going on before the United States involvement in World War II, and mention about propaganda pieces that we talked about on Friday. You also had an assignment, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'll grade that here later. Shouldn't be working on it now, though. Yeah. Okay. It's almost like that pole vaulting attempt. Just joking. Well, that's good. Wow. Good. That has to be pretty tough to train for. Yeah. Bless you. All right, okay. So the United States, right before World War II, before we get involved, we were going through a depression, right? Connor told us about this, right? And four industries or factories are shut down. Okay, so this is going to be a huge adjustment for us as we're transitioning into war. Okay, yeah, after Pearl Harbor, this is what finally pushed the United States into war and into World War II. Right. Not only that, we have to fight a two-front war, right? We have to fight the Pacific and we have to fight European theater. So fighting a two-front war is going to be difficult, especially in two totally different environments. And one being out in the Pacific, mostly out in open water using aircraft carriers, which we'll talk more about with the battles we'll see. And also, we have to fight Europe, North Africa and Europe, and mostly on the land. So overall, this challenge is going to be a pretty big one. And for a country coming out of the depression like this for several years, obviously, it is going to be a difficult task. So how do we prepare? What do we do? So propaganda pieces, let's start there. How did the U.S. try to help promote for women to join in the industries, factories, fill these positions as better than Well, yeah, Rosie the Riveter, yeah, good job. So it's not one person, right? It's the symbol, an iconic figure for American women to join the war effort and help prepare us for this conflict. So sewing uniforms, sewing parachutes, clothing, you name it, all the way up to actually creating tanks and types of planes rolling off lots in these big manufactured zones and areas, like Ford Motor Company, which you have these huge industries in the U.S. that have been shut down for quite a bit of time through the Great Depression. And no longer are they making these peacetime products, they're making wartime products. We talked on Friday about Ford Motor Company, especially creating a lot of these different types of bombers and different types of planes and tanks. And so much so that our industrialization, our industries, our production is what's going to win us this conflict. Okay, again, were we prepared for war militarily? No. Right, our Pacific fleet's out for 6 months, and when it comes to war in Europe, Germany pretty much has a stronghold on these strategies, plans, right, and the different forms of use of blitzkrieg tactics. So it's going to be a challenge for us, right, an adjustment for sure. All right, what about rationing? What does that mean? I didn't have it as a term, but we talked about it in World War I. Somewhat moving Paul. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Chris. Having each person save goods with everybody. Yeah, good job, right? So when you look at victory gardens, right? We talked about victory gardens in World War I. So people were aimed to promote to produce as much food as possible. So not to waste anything and pump out as much food as possible for the war effort. Also, when it comes to scrap metal, different types of resources like old tires, the rubber for it, right? You can gather them up at community centers, community areas, and they can ship it off to create a military good out of it, a product out of it. So yeah, I thought that part of the video was fun. Those guys in Dodge and items coming at them in the dump truck. I thought that was fun. All right, the War Production Board, again, how our government is transitioning our businesses, our industries, again, because we have a private sector, a large private sector to wartime products. Okay, a lot of these businesses, okay, they adjust themselves to try to support the war. It's not like they're going against the government here, going against, okay, these means, and this is a way for the industries to open back up, give people jobs, and stimulate the economy, pulling us out of this depression. So years down the road here, when you get to American history too, you'll talk about the New Deal and how FDR tried to create these government-funded jobs to stimulate the economy. And well, there's a lot of arguments saying, oh, did it actually do more harm than good? Well, that's a question, right, obviously. And when it comes to researching that question, there's a lot of proof saying that, yeah, maybe it did push us more into the depression. But ultimately, what gets us out of the depression is World War II. All right, so that's how our private industries transition. Okay, that's how capitalism is used to help promote for this war effort, and how government is involving itself to try to create a large military front. All right, is there any questions? All right, so like I said, after World War II, okay, really after Pearl Harbor, our military won't be second place ever since obviously up to current times. Okay, it just shows how much growth we have. And after an attack like Pearl Harbor, we don't want to see something like that occur again. All right, so now we're going to transition. We're going to talk about the fall of the Philippines and the Bataan Death March. Okay, so this event's pretty brutal. I just want to warn you. Okay, we're also, I want to introduce and include an important name. If you guys get a chance, maybe you can check the movie out. I attached a video lesson. The trailer to this movie to the video lesson. It's called Unbroken. It's an interesting story, a remarkable story about also an Olympic athlete of the United States who was in a prison, was a prisoner of war for the Japanese, which is an interesting story. So as you look into his name here, Louis Zamperini, okay, you get a chance to hear his story, which is very heroic, right? Very motivational. Okay, so you think about going through tough times. Well, he did as he faced this prison camp for a long time. He actually floated out in the Pacific Ocean for over 40 days. Oh man, can you imagine that? Whew. And low food, low water. And then he gets captured by the Japanese. Oh, well, maybe you should have stayed in the float, I guess, right? The boat. And it talks a lot about that situation. All right, so there you go. Fall of the Philippines, the Bataan Death March, the Bushido Code, and Louis Zamperini. We did mention about the Bushido Code already, okay, how the Japanese, warrior lifestyle is, and this code of arms, so to speak, for the Japanese, the samurai's code. So I'll give you some time, work on these terms. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about the fall of Philippines today, the Bataan Death March, Bushido Code. But real quick, Louis Zamperini, what do we know about him? What do we know? So if you guys get a chance, there's a movie out there. It's called Unbroken. Okay. It's a very great movie, motivational movie, and it just talks about his story and what he had to deal with in a Japanese prison camp here, prisoner of war camp. So what else do you know about him? Why did the Japanese want to try to torture this guy, take pictures of it, send it all across so the United States could see it? What's so important about him? What do we know about him? Go ahead, Paul. Yeah, good job. Yeah, so he's an Olympic runner in the 1936 Olympic Games. Where were they held again? 1936. We talked about this. Awesome. Yeah, Berlin. Good job. So placed eighth in the running event. So he was a long distance runner, and he was famed, right? He was well known around the world, obviously to the United States. So Japanese, their goal is to try to torture this guy, so much so that they could maybe get something in return, obviously from the United States. And this was an idea here to try to show that even the strongest icons in the United States could be, obviously tortured, but maybe even killed by the Japanese. And they were just trying to show again this brutalization of these Americans. Okay, unfortunately, obviously in World War II. So with the Japanese, one thing to note is that they go by this Bushido Code. Any sign of weakness, well, chances are you'll find yourself dead, killed, tortured, and even killed, which we'll talk a little bit about that here with the Bataan Death March. All right, so fighting back in the Pacific. So if you get a chance again, check out that movie Unbroken. I attached the trailer to it to the video lesson. Okay, I think you guys will maybe enjoy it. It is hard to watch in some cases. Obviously, getting tortured. A lot of American citizens, American soldiers getting. Okay. But he was out. His plane actually crashed out in the Pacific Ocean, but he floated in the water for 47 days. Imagine that. Oh, geez, the Pacific Ocean. So you're close to the equator as well. You got to think how hot it really is. Just constant sun beating down on it, and with low water, low food. Right? Here he is. He sees this ship coming up to him, and all of a sudden he realizes, oh, it's the Japanese. And he talks quite a bit about it. How it probably would have been better just floating out in the water and maybe even dying on the ocean rather than being captured by the Japanese. So that's something to know. Again, you guys get a chance to check out that movie Unbroken. All right, so fighting the Pacific. So after Pearl Harbor, the United States is obviously getting involved in the war. But was our Pacific Fleet ready to fight? Now, we're out for 6 months. So this allowed for Japan to continue their stretch, their sphere of influence in Southeast Asia. And, well, what are they going to target? What territory do we have in Southeast Asia? Paul, go ahead. The Philippines, get your job. So here we are in their backyard, right? There we are. Okay, at this military base. Okay, with Douglas MacArthur. Okay, make sure you know him. He's an important figure, especially with World War II in the Pacific Theater. He's kind of running the show. He's deciding on different strategies and plans to island hop our way back and pushing Japan back to their borders. And one thing to note about Douglas MacArthur is that after World War II, he will serve the Korean War. Same thing, okay, trying to help stop communism from spreading on the Korean Peninsula. So later down the road, he'll talk about the Korean War more in detail and obviously his involvement. Okay, he does get in a conflict with Harry Truman, which causes some issues between our president, our high command, and, well, his ideas about trying to stop communism from spreading. All right, so with MacArthur, okay, I did say about how he reminds me of someone that you might know, right? What is that? Let's put that away with you. Okay, what is that figure, that actor, I won't say an actor, but that person I said he reminds me of, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? The Terminator. Yeah, because he says he will be back, he will return. As the Japanese take the Philippines, which they have a lot of means of attack, right? They have a lot of ways to attack the Philippines. As they stretch down here in the eastern coast of China, and even, which at the time was called Formosa, still it's Taiwan, they launch these attacks onto the Philippines, and there's really nowhere for the United States to really try to support what soldiers they have there, and also support the Filipino soldiers there. Okay, they're dwindling in numbers, right? They're limited of what resources they have in the Philippines. Again, because our Pacific fleet's been out for so long, and it was just a matter of time, really, for the Japanese come and take the islands, which they do in 1941, shortly after Pearl Harbor. Okay, so it takes a little bit of time, obviously, it doesn't happen right away. But with low resources, low numbers of men, the Japanese come in and invade the island and take it from the U.S. All right, so again, for MacArthur, he promises he'll be back. So he flees to Australia, which is obviously that only island there the Allied powers has in Southeast Asia. Okay, and we'll talk about an important battle tomorrow with Battle 4C to try to protect Australia from obviously going into the hands of the Japanese. So if that goes, well, there's no control for the Allies in Southeast Asia, okay, in the Pacific. It's going to be a lot tougher for us to push Japan back to their own borders. So as the Philippines fall, well, there's a lot of U.S. troops and Filipino troops that are stranded there, okay, and which surrender to the Japanese. And with that, again, because the Japanese go strictly by this Bushido code, the samurai code, okay, to never give up, never surrender, they view these prisoners of war as literally garbage, right? As subhuman. Okay, so much so that they torture them, killing a lot of them in this long, brutal march. So this march, more than 60 miles through the Philippines to this prison camp that the Japanese created. So 60 miles. Guess what temperature it is over in the Philippines? It's right on the equator. About 105 degrees each and every day. So with no food, no water, marching 60 miles, right? You can just imagine how many people, American troops, Filipino troops died in this event. The whole time, the Japanese was obviously aggregating a lot of the soldiers walking these far distances. Okay, in many cases using their samurai swords to literally chop limbs off of the soldiers as they're walking. They viewed it as somewhat of a game, as they constantly tortured these troops in this far walk. And in many cases here, they would, a lot of times, if any of the troops would fall over, or fall to the ground, or weren't moving fast enough, the Japanese troops were behind them with bayonets, constantly stabbing a lot of the troops that were maybe slowing up their pace, or just even falling down. If they fell down, well, their heads were lopped off by samurai swords, or just even stabbed to death by these bayonets. So it was a brutal, brutal walk. And it just showed those prisoners that walked these far distances really what kind of courage and what kind of morale they had. And there's a lot of stories about this, primary resources out there. You guys get a chance to look more into it. And just really how tough this march was. So just realizing that even your friends, obviously your brothers, so to speak, as you're making this march, your goal is to try to hold them up, carry them this far distances on very low water. And we'll talk as the United States eventually comes back in 1944, 1945, towards the end of World War II, the U.S. does reclaim the Philippines. And as they stumble across these prison camps here, you can only imagine what sights they see. A lot of the sites look like what we'll talk about eventually with these concentration camps. These U.S. soldiers, Filipino soldiers were tortured beyond belief for long periods of time. And without food, without water, you can just imagine what their body looked like. They looked literally like skeletons. So with the Japanese, okay, at the end of the war, we'll talk about some of the war crimes, some of the punishments placed on some of these key figures, these officials in Japan. And it just shows, again, this brutality of their means of warfare and following, again, this Bushido Code. All right, but by 1942, after the fall of the Philippines, you can just see exactly how far Japan has conquered, expanded their sphere of influence, taking over lands far into Southeast Asia. And now Australia is the only chunk of land, even though it's a huge island, right? The only island that's controlled by the United States Gallic powers. So with that, okay, we'll talk tomorrow about the Battle of Coral Sea. We'll even mention about the Doolittle raids, which was attack on Tokyo to get back to Japan after Pearl Harbor. So we'll mention that. Okay, this heroic mission to target the key city capital of Japan, Tokyo, and also the first battle out in the open water with aircraft carriers. All right, is there any questions? So again, if you get a chance, I do have that trailer of Unbroken attached to the video lesson. Check it out. Also, we might have the map of the Pacific quiz tomorrow. Okay? If we can get the quiz done and some of the notes done, that'd be great. That's the goal anyway. If not, we just get the quiz in, no big deal. But whoever has the fastest time, 100%, screenshot it and then share it with me. Matt, what's your fastest time? I saw your email. I didn't get to look at the time. What's your fastest time? So much so you had to send it to me. I appreciate that. What do you get? Well, see you guys later. Have a good one. Take care. See what Matt has. 19 seconds.
I got a 15 seconds.
Whoa, did you screenshot it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I got it.